I'm not 100% sure. But anyway,
Right on.
okay, anyway, go, by all means, go ahead. You guys have questions. He has answers and a book. At least
Two
one
books, but yeah.
Okay.
They
Fascinating.
get shy. They get shy when new people come in.
Yeah, I guess.
Hold
I mean,
on, no one's shy here. What is it? What is it? What do you want to discuss?
well, typically, on my YouTube channel, I post discussions and debates that I have with people, and I just what I do is I go on TikTok and I put a banner above my head with some bullet points, and usually it says something like "Creationism is stupid," "Evolution's true," "The Big Bang happened," it's actually still happening. I don't see any evidence of God. Science is awesome. Things like that. And I just invite whoever wants to talk and disagree with any of those things. Yeah, I basically I let the people talking to me decide what we talk about. So
you have answers. In other words, if I ask you about, like, for example, if I ask you what is dark matter, you would be able to give me an answer.
we can describe the properties of dark matter, but we don't know what it is. That's why it's called dark matter.
Oh, I like this guy already. Okay, so yeah, good answer. Okay, we don't know what it is. Where do we go from here?
As far as I understand it, what it is just a phenomenon of light bending around supposed mass in space, right?
It is. There's a gravitational effect that is clearly observed, the source of which we don't know. We have some ideas. It may be WIMPs, which is an acronym standing for Weakly Interacting Massive Particles. So I think essentially what that would be, it would be like hydrogen clouds or something similar that are in galaxies in the universe. But for whatever reason, it's so dispersed that it doesn't absorb enough light to be re-emitted to a degree that we can detect or something like that. It's not. From what I understand, WIMPs aren't proposed to be like an exotic new form of matter. So yeah, but dark matter, yeah. When we started doing like astrophotography, whatever, with Hubble and other telescopes, when we looked at very distant things, and when we tried to look past galaxy clusters, we would see a funhouse mirror type of effect. Or if you have like a drinking glass with a thick base, if you try to look through it like a periscope or something, then you'll see things will get bent in a funny way. And we've seen that. And I think it was actually detected way before that. A guy named Fritz Zwicky was one of the first ones, and Vera Rubin. I think Vera Rubin, they were both kind of at the same time. I don't remember 100% who was first. But what they noticed was galaxies are rotating way too fast for the observable matter to have enough gravitational strength to hold them together. And that was the very first time we detected what the heck is going on here. And then I don't know who came up with the term dark matter, but there we are, or here we are, rather.
That's a good explanation. Now think about it, right? How did they know how galaxies should have turned? Who determined that?
We make observations and then we build models around those observations.
Right, but dark matter was put in place because they thought that the galaxies, turned too fast, or that they should have spread apart, right?
No,
how did they know?
We can see that they are spinning faster than the observable matter would have enough gravitational strength to hold them in place.
That's an assumption according to Einstein's gravitational theory, right? But how do you know that? How do you know? Do you think a human being knows how fast those things out there should turn? And
it's
when
not a matter of how fast
they don't seem to be turning the way we think. Well, let's invent 26% of stuff out there. Does that sound reasonable to you?
True. That's what happened. Exactly what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard this guy talk, and he just tries to be as dishonest as possible. I don't think he means anything that he says, basically. But yeah, what really happened?
Wow, I thought you were a nice guy, so you're not. You're just a troll.
No, you are.
You know what I just said is exactly true according to your model, right?
Yeah, I need you to be a good boy, like your PFP, and wait until I'm done talking before you speak. So anyways, your characterization of what happened is a really idiotic straw man of what happened, and you know that it's an idiotic straw man. That's how you were able to frame it in that way because you know enough about it in order to mischaracterize it. People that don't know anything about something, when they try to mischaracterize it, they just say stuff that doesn't make any sense. But you seem to know enough.
I'm going to be kind to you because
I'm
you're
literally
a guest
still
only.
talking.
I'm going to be kind to you because you're
literally
a guest
still
only.
talking.
Yeah, I know. Listen to what I just said.
I have muted you. I don't think I have server mute powers, but I can't hear you, so there's no point in you talking right now. So I know that what you're doing is a dishonest tactic. It's extremely obvious, and that's not at all what happened. What we saw was, well, here, let me ask you a question. Do you know how to determine how fast a galaxy is rotating?
That's what I asked you before you insulted me.
No, you said how fast should they be turning, which is a ridiculous question. We don't prescribe things. We don't prescribe anything to galaxies. We make observations. So do you know how to calculate how fast a galaxy is rotating?
That's not the question. The question is,
it actually is the question, and I would know because I'm the one who said it. Do you know
you can
how?
ask the question if you want. The real
That's great. I'm
question
going to
is,
ask it for a third time. How do you determine how fast a galaxy is rotating?
Yeah, who determined that?
I want to have a conversation.
Yeah, who determined how fast the galaxy rotated? That's what I first asked you, and that's when you got triggered, didn't you? Because nobody knows how a galaxy should rotate. Sir,
There you go. There you are giving a prescription about what a galaxy should do, as if that's how anything works. So the question remains, do you even know how to determine how fast a galaxy is rotating?
Listen to the answer. Nobody knows how fast a galaxy should be rotating unless you're God,
Cat,
my friend.
Cat,
Do you
Cat,
understand
what is it
that?
doing?
If you don't understand that, you don't know anything about cosmology.
Okay, you are disqualified from having any kind of conversation because you just said the way my epistemology works is I throw up my hands, God is the one that decides things, and things aren't knowable. So you can't even argue a position because you don't actually have a position. Is that really how you want things to go?
No, I made a statement of fact. Listen to it again. Nobody here on Earth.
I literally heard
Yes.
everything you have to say.
No, don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me.
I heard
Nobody here on
everything you
Earth knows
said,
how
and I
fast.
muted you, so I can't hear you. I don't have any interest in you repeating your claim. I heard what you said. It's extremely obvious. You say it can't be known, only God can know it. So you have disqualified yourself from having a conversation about anything because you don't have a position on the way anything should be. You can't say, oh, it should be like this, or it should be like that. You just say, well, God knows, and nobody else is capable of knowing.
Eric,
No,
Yeah,
can you let me speak
wait,
without
wait, wait.
interrupting? Can I?
Let SE finish his statement. You don't have to listen, obviously, but I do want to let him finish. Go ahead, SE.
Thank you. I know you're triggered, my friend, but what I'm going to say right now is 100% fact. You don't have to like it, but you're going to listen to it, okay? Nobody here on Earth knows how that galaxy out there should be turning. Nobody knows. That is a fact.
Yep. So you're very clearly a troll because I described multiple times that nobody is going around saying what it should be doing. We make observations, and you refuse to answer the question about how can you tell how fast a galaxy is rotating, which is
I
not the
did.
thing you're talking about. No, you haven't even made an attempt. I'm asking you, how can you tell how fast it's rotating? And you keep
You
saying
can observe it.
nobody
You can
knows.
observe it to tell how fast
Nobody
it's
knows how fast it should be rotating. It's extremely
Buddy,
transparent.
listen
We can
carefully.
try it
There's
one
two
more time.
questions here.
Do
How
you know
do
how
we
to
know
do it?
it's rotating? And how do we know how fast it should
Do
be
you
rotating?
know how to tell how fast a galaxy is rotating?
Yes, you observe it.
Yeah, be more specific. What is the specific observation that you make?
Well, you observe it to respect of other stars around it.
That no. So earlier I said you knew enough about this in order to create a misconstruction of it to strawman it. Let me apologize. I was
It
wrong.
doesn't
You
matter what
actually don't
explanation
know
you
anything.
give, bro. Don't you understand that? You don't
I was in the middle
know.
of talking, so you're gonna have to stop. So I apologize for mischaracterizing you as knowing anything about how this works. It's extremely obvious that you have literally no freaking clue how this works because you said what you do is you compare rotation to other stars. That is absolutely not how it works.
Listen, buddy, anything you say now of how it works, it's just somebody told you. You don't know. You understand that? You're not
Do
going
you
to come
know?
here and play high and mighty, bro.
Do you know?
You do not know how fast
Do
the
you know?
galaxy should turn. No matter what you say,
There you go,
no
saying
matter how
should again.
smart you start to sound now, right? You
I'm not
don't
gonna listen
know.
to the pontificating. I don't care.
All right,
Do you
well-
know?
Alright.
Do you? Essie,
Hold on,
do you know?
hold on a second,
so
dude.
will you admit that you have no idea how to tell how fast a galaxy is rotating?
well, hold on, dude. Before we move on to that, originally he's mentioned the rate of the galaxies, their spin, and you said it had nothing to do with that.
Exactly. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It has
I asked
exactly
him-
to do with that.
I asked him, how do you determine how fast they're spinning? And what he did the first 10 times was he said, nobody knows how fast they should be, which wasn't the question. And then once I explained that in a way that even he knew he couldn't get away with lying about it like he was,
Hold
Then
on,
he
hold on,
tried
dude.
to get a
Hold on, bro. Hold on,
Let
hold on, Essie, hold on.
Let Peterson
then what he did was he tried to give an explanation, which was false. And now that he's
Okay,
been
why
called
don't you
out on the
tell
fact
us?
of his
Tell us.
explanation,
Tell us how they know.
now he's
Hold on.
Let
now
let
he's
Peterson
going
finish.
back. Now he's going back to the whole, oh, well, you don't know how fast it should be rotating. So
That is
that's
the
where
point,
we are.
my friend.
That's about that. Hold on,
Everything else you say
Essie.
is irrelevant.
Essie,
Alright.
1 second. Real quick, please. I'm just trying to clarify. That's his honest position. He's arguing from good faith. He doesn't believe it's possible to know the rotation or what the galaxy rotation should be. We know the argument. We know that we can do an internal critique of your model. And in your model, the arms of the galaxy, the external arms of the galaxy, are moving faster than the inside of the galaxy. And because of that, you guys need to invoke dark matter. But originally, you said it had nothing to do with the spin. When it does.
That's right. And he's trying to tell me that I don't know
didn't
the
say
model.
anything like that. No.
That's
I
exactly what you
said-
said, bro. Yeah.
What I disputed was Essie's characterization of how you determine how fast a galaxy is rotating. You don't determine the speed at which a galaxy is rotating by comparing stars. You
Tell us
could.
how you do it. Go ahead. Tell us how you do it.
You look at Doppler shift.
You look at Doppler shift. Okay.
Yes.
So now,
That's how you do it. That's how you
Not-
determine the rotation speed of a galaxy.
okay. So now that we determine that, now let's see if you're going to be man enough and admit that nobody really knows or will ever know how fast a galaxy, listen to my words, should be rotating.
I'm not entertaining your dumbass characterization of the prescription of how fast
He
it should
can't
be
handle it.
rotating.
He just
No,
insults.
I've explained it multiple times. Calling a dumbass is not an insult. I have
See?
explained
That's
it
another
multiple
insult.
times that we don't give prescriptions for what they be or what they should be. We make observations and then we like people who are brilliant do calculations and science. We don't give prescriptions. And you're
Buddy, you know how
incapable of
many
understanding it.
snake-oil
I think it's
salesmen
because
like
you
you
have
I've
your
heard?
troll script and you can't deviate from your troll script. Otherwise, in your mind, you're not funny anymore. So you're incapable of engaging with this topic on its actual terms. So I don't care.
No, buddy, what I did was I stopped you in your tracks. And you know how I did that? I showed you that you or nobody knows what the speed of those galaxies out there should be. Now, if there was anybody
I
here
can't
with
believe you've
integrity,
done this 10
stop
times
talking.
in a
I'm
row.
don't interrupt, bro. I'm still talking.
See, I have muted
If
you. And I'm
there's a
not going to
PhD in
unmute
here,
you.
somebody with
You're too
integrity,
dishonest
they
and you're
will
too
tell-
stupid.
see, you can't
I have
handle
told
it,
you
right?
about 10 times.
You gotta
that
let him
you
speak,
don't
though.
go
We
around
can't just go again.
saying what they
You
should
are interrupting
do.
me, sir.
I've told you so many times that that's not how it works, and that's all you can fall back on.
Okay, so
we can't have a conversation.
So Planet, hold on. As he finish it up, and then we're gonna move on to other people.
I
Sure,
literally
thank
can't hear him, so let me know when he's done.
Okay, go ahead.
Wow, he can't hear me? Wow, I'm so glad that happens, man. I trigger them and they go mental. He can't handle the statement. I'm going to say it one last time. Nobody ever born, nobody alive, or nobody ever in the future is ever going to know how fast a galaxy should turn.
To the contrary, it turns exactly as fast as I say it should turn. All right.
Yeah.
So
All right.
I actually have something. I want to ask something.
So, all right.
Go ahead.
Good.
Yeah,
So-
so I interact a lot with flat earthers and anti-evolution people too. And I have a line. I see Zamada here, so he like just will mute me like if I annoy him too much. But how do you find a good balance?
That's a lie. I never
Peterson,
muted you.
for Peterson, how do you
Never.
find a good balance between like I like to refer to it as explaining reality to people because there are some flat earthers that are just too far gone. And
No, that's not his topic, dude. He's talking about Big Bang. He's talking about God. It's not in the topic.
The question. How do you find a balance between finding people that are trying to have an honest conversation about these things? Because I feel like not understanding evolution is way more reasonable than not understanding.
Okay.
How do you find that balance?
Just to troll.
I don't really know what you mean by
he's gonna
finding
do harm
the
to the
balance,
server.
because I don't pick out the people I talk to. They come to
Oh
me
yeah, that's true.
every single time.
I don't think we should
So-
go with how to talk to people. That's not going to make a good show.
Oh, I thought we were supposed to ask questions.
Yeah,
Is
you
that
said
not what
you
we're doing?
see no evidence for God.
Okay, so we're just not gonna. Okay, cool.
Well,
see what
I
I
asked
mean.
You can
Hold
ask me
on,
whatever
hold
the
on,
fuck he
hold on.
wants. I don't
Hang on.
understand why people are tone policing somebody else's question.
Okay,
That's why he's whatever.
So, do I call you Planet or Peterson or I think it's Eric or?
Yeah, you can call me Eric. I don't care.
Okay. So, if you want to answer that question, I want to keep people who are constantly kind of breaking in and dominating at base. We can have a lot of different people get in. But if you want to answer that question, I'm going to answer it. By all means, go ahead and answer it. And if not, I think Tora wants to talk about evidence for God.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I just gave my answer. I don't actually do any selecting of my guests, really. So
Okay. Gotcha. Good. Okay. So,
Well, just one sec. Out of curiosity, Eric, is it? Yeah. What? I'm assuming you're a secular humanist, then, right? I mean, at very least, an atheist, right?
I'm an atheist. Yeah.
Are you a secular humanist?
I don't really label myself with any kind of political or ethical framework, but I find no real problem with secular humanism as a framework for understanding, building a normative ethical framework.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I want to go back to the rotation of the galaxies. I mean, it's not like, physicists and astrophysicists are completely ignorant. We've got the orbital velocities. We're able to put satellites up and they work. We can see nearby galaxies and make predictions, and those seem to work out. It's just those way off that seem to be doing something funny, and we're not sure why. And, it's a theory that there might be something out there causing that gravitational influence, and it's got a value on it, and that's about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the whole observable matter only accounts for about 5% of the composition of the universe or whatever it is, and then dark energy and dark matter are much bigger pieces. They throw that in as if we don't know anything, but no, we actually know the properties of dark matter extremely well. We know specifically how much gravitational strength it has. That's about really all there is to know about it. And it also doesn't discount anything we know about ordinary matter, which is count the number of things there are in the universe, in the observable universe, and that's how many things we know about. So it's close to uncountable, basically. Or for all practical purposes, it's uncountable. So as if learning new things it's such a weird thing that people do with it, oh, we learned that there's something we don't know. Haha, that proves how stupid you guys are. Says the person who thinks Earth is flat. It's so comical.
Well, I thought they threw dark matter in dark energy just to make the maths work. I thought it was just like a placeholder, until something bad comes along.
We had extremely precise and confirmed Big Bang observations and studies decades and decades before we had any idea that there was dark matter and dark energy.
But I'm just saying, I thought it was a concept in maths, though. You're saying they've actually defined it further than just a description?
But what would
To this day, they failed to test for dark matter, bro.
I don't know what you're saying. What would we have of dark matter other than a description? That would be the only thing we would have for it.
Right. So it's nothing we've actually. You couldn't get me a cup of dark matter, that's what I'm saying.
No, we don't know what it's composed of. I mean,
Right.
Hundreds of years ago, we had no freaking clue what the composition of the sun was, but we knew to a very high degree what its mass was, and we could describe the orbital mechanics of planets around it. I mean, there was, again, you can point to things we don't know, And that's actually fascinating. It means, oh, cool. Now we have a direction of where to go with the new stuff we're going to learn or whatever.
Yeah,
but again, it doesn't discount what we already do know, which is quite a lot.
Yeah,
By
I
a
think
lot,
something
you mean
else could
just
come.
4%, right? By a lot, you mean just 4% of that
Something else.
stuff?
What?
I was just going to say, do you think? I mean, something else could come along and throw the whole thing out, though, right? Potentially.
I mean, like, so in science, you basically have to take this attitude that whatever our current models are could be, disproven. But that's just in principle. Do I think that's going to happen? Absolutely not. Like in theory, evolution could be falsified, but at this point, based on what we know, that just isn't going to happen. In principle, it can happen though.
It hasn't even been proven. What are you talking about?
Yes, it has.
Yeah, I
Let
would
me ask you
like
another
that.
question. The first one stumped him. Let me see if you can handle this one. In your
Sorry, I don't know
evolutionary
who said that.
theory,
What has and what did you mean?
He can't hear you, SE.
he's got me muted for
Oh,
real?
yeah, that's true. If SE wants to
Wow.
talk about a different topic, I'm fine with that. But we're not talking about the galaxies because he doesn't know anything about it.
He
Are
wanted
you
to
allowed
do
to mute a
evolution.
mod here?
I love it.
Or block a mod?
Man, I love it.
He wanted to
Yeah,
do
it-
evolution.
It's just not a good idea.
Okay,
for
SE, let's talk
conversation in
about
general,
evolution.
dude. Yeah,
I don't think you
just
can mute or
say
block a
what's
mod here. I think it's like part of the rules.
He's a guest.
No, you're allowed to block a mod. I got permission.
The point is that it'll mess the whole conversation up. So if you just turn him up as much as
Yeah,
you
it's
can
been
bear
messed
to
up.
listen.
So yeah, what we want to do is if you're blocking someone or mute or turning them down, just turn them down to like 3% and watch for their thing flashing. However, as a guest for the event, we're gonna try to give Eric Planet Peterson speaking priority when possible. So
Yeah, I'm fine with talking to SE on a different topic. He just couldn't handle the galaxy thing, and he kept saying the same thing over and over again, so I was done with it. But
okay, all right. So
what about I can hear him. So
okay,
talk about evolution.
So I think evolution is good. I just wanted to make sure. Where's Lion? Not Tor, rather. Tor, did you want to get in? I heard you trying.
I'm perfectly fine with evolution.
Okay. So yeah, right on. Yeah,
Wait, super quick before we get into the entire shit show that's going to be, can I ask a legitimate question about evolution before we just pretend like it's not what it is?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the only good question I've gotten from an evolution denier is, what's the utility of having taxonomy or any form of cladistics for prokaryota, as they don't speciate in the same way as eukaryotes do? Like, do you know? Like, you might not know enough about it, but do you know why we differentiate between like germs and stuff like that? Like, what's the utility there, and how is it done?
It's like a really simple example. Think of like a bunch of infectious diseases: Streptococcus, Escherichia coli. There's one where it's like Bacillus something. I don't remember. Those words actually describe the bacteria, and bacteria are divided by their shape. So the coccal bacteria are sphere shaped. The Bacillus bacteria are shaped like a pill, sort of like a long 3D cylinder or whatever. So just a very simple example is, based on those physical characteristics, there are certain other characteristics that they share. So just trying to diagnose or figure out something, like if you have a new bacteria or if you have an idiopathic situation in a hospital, they don't know exactly what's going on, but they can look under the microscope and be like, oh, okay, well, this has the physical signatures of this type of bacteria, which is in this group, which has these type. The vast majority of bacteria don't make you sick. There's only about a couple dozen that actually do. So that would be one example where it's highly useful. But there are some implications for evolution, probably because bacteria have changed over time. There's been endosymbiosis to the degree that the phylogenetic tree or the clades of bacteria play into that. I'm pretty ignorant of it, so I don't know off the top of my head, but I would guess that they probably rely on data like that. But yeah, bacteria are very weird. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like mitochondrial even all of that. Like we can show, basically we have a single strand of mitochondria that relate to all eukaryotes and stuff like that. So there is some, but you're saying it's less for showing relationships or a genetic history and more for showing like utility in curing or grouping for medical reasons.
Well, I'm not trying to tell you what it's more or less for. I'm just giving you examples of how it is used, even though they don't fit into categories as neatly as animals or plants.
Animals do, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Can I ask the expert a question, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Can you tell me, in your evolutionary idea, right? You start off as a single cell, correct? In your idea of evolution?
I have no idea what that means. I was a zygote at one point. Do you mean life on the planet was at one point single-celled?
Yes. Life began as a single cell, right?
We don't know that, but it almost certainly could not have begun as multicellular before single-cellular. We don't know that, but we don't know. I was a zygote at one point. Do you mean life on the planet was at one point single-celled?
Yes. Life began as correct in your idea of evolution?
I have no idea what that means. I was a zygote at one point. Do you mean life on the planet was at one point single-celled?
Yeah, right. You start off as a single cell, correct? In your idea of evolution?
I have no idea what that means. I was a zygote at one point. Do you mean life on the planet was at one point single-celled?
Yes. Life began as a single cell, right?
I was a zygote at one point. Do you mean life on the planet was at one point single-celled?
Yes. Life began as a single cell, right?
I was a zygote at one point. Do you mean life on the planet was at one point single-celled?
Yes. Life began as a single cell, right?
We don't know that, but I was a zygote at one point. Do you mean life on the planet was at one point single-celled?
Yes, life began as a single cell, right?
We don't
According
know
to
that,
evolution.
but I was a zygote at one point. Do you mean life on the planet was at one point single-celled?
Yes, life began as a single cell, right?
We don't
According
know
to
that,
evolution.
but we don't know that, but it almost certainly could not have begun as multicellular before single-cellular.
Okay,
Well,
so
to clarify, even
the question is this, if I may, and this is what stumps the evolutionists right off the get-go. The first question: does
Where are
one
all the
creature
2,
turn
3,
into
7,
another
4?
creature?
Does one creature turn into another creature?
Yes, in your idea of evolution, does one creature turn into another creature?
So there's this, what's it called, the law of phylogeny or something like that. Every organism that gives birth to another organism, that organism is always a member of its same species. Now, this does actually get really weird with bacteria because you can perform a bacterial transformation where you can take a bacteria and give it a trait that no member of its genus can express. Because bacteria are so incredibly simple, you can do that with them. They're unicellular. They don't have traits or phenotypes in the way we think of. So can a bacteria via horizontal genes transfer or what's it called? What the hell's that called? Not a transmutation, but there's different names for the way you can transfer genes back and forth between bacteria. I can't remember any of the others off the top of my head. But in that way, can a bacteria turn into a different creature? Well, kind of. But bacteria are a philosophical mess. I mean, they reproduce by binary fission. So when a bacteria splits itself in half, do you have
I didn't ask you
two
about
of
a
the
bacteria. Sorry to cut you off, but I didn't ask.
I know you
about a
didn't ask.
bacteria.
I'm just trying to tell you that bacteria are very odd and our typical biological concepts don't strictly apply to them very well. And I'll just do the reproduction example real quick. It's only going to be 15 seconds. When a bacterium divides, are there two of the exact same bacteria? Or does the original one cease to exist and it's two new ones? Or is one of them the original and the other isn't? It's actually kind of impossible to answer. It just depends on what your philosophical take on it is.
Well, I don't think
Literally
it's so
just
much
multiplies.
philosophical because if you believe you started off as a single cell,
Wait,
this is
can
where I
just
stump
clarify?
all evolutionaries, right? This is where they double speak, right? So
Yeah.
how could you go from a single cell to me and you without one creature turning into another?
Wait, maybe
Please
maybe I
explain
can
that.
clarify. Maybe I can
No, not
clarify.
you. No, not you, bro. I'm not interested in anything you have to say, unless anybody else is. But we're talking to the host now.
Sure. Can I explain? Because he's asked me this before, and I know.
No, I don't
where
want you to explain it, bro. I want the host who's
Please
hosting.
let him go back and forth with Peterson.
Sure. I appreciate the attempt, but so evolution, you're saying evolution can't happen unless one creature turns into another creature. So if I say that no, that's not how it works, then according to you, evolution is false or could not have happened. That's really silly. We can demonstrate this by way of analogy.
Don't gaslight me, bro. I asked you a simple question. Either you can answer it
God,
or you can gaslight me.
So
Well,
how
not
could a
gaslighting
pineapple
you.
turn into a dog?
If that's your interpretation of what's going on, then Spanky bless you. But anyways, I can demonstrate the.
Did you hear that answer of the expert that came here? Did you guys hear the answer he just gave me? I love it, man.
I'm not even remotely close to done giving you an answer because things aren't as simple as you pretend that they are. So sorry that you think it works that way, but it doesn't. So by way of analogy, I can demonstrate that the demand you're placing on evolution is completely false because we can just compare other things that change over time, like language. Every single child that's ever been born to any
Language.
parent speaks the same language as its parents, unless it's born deaf or something weird. Yet languages change over time. So when did Latin become Portuguese?
Wait, you
not
think that
overnight.
people are weird?
Not overnight, not in one generation. It happens bit by bit to the point where the real description of it is it never happens in one instant. But when you separate periods of time, when you separate events that are causally linked in time, and you take a look at those causal events across vast stretches, you see that over here it's completely different than over there. Or an even simpler example would maybe be when does a single-celled or when does a zygote turn into an adult? Well, it doesn't, but they're causally linked.
So that's your explanation. Everybody satisfied with that explanation?
Probably not you, but
Pineapple can turn into a dog.
my name is Ken Hovind, and dogs produce dogs.
Yeah, he's doing the Ken Ovenkind thing. Is what he's doing.
You guys are ridiculing. You guys are ridiculing it yourself, man. I don't have to do any work here.
You're an idiot.
This is,
Well, I can.
this is
Yes.
one of the funnest debates I've ever had, or conversations, whatever.
And see, I can prove to you that according to you, your line of questioning is completely fallacious. Do you think that modern dogs, like the English Bulldog or American Bulldog, whichever one that is as your PFP, do you think that they are derived from wolves?
That's what the story goes, yeah.
Do you think so?
I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. I have no reason not to believe it, but if you were to put a gun on my head, I would tell you I'm not sure. It appears that way, but I wouldn't fight it.
Sounds like you think it's more likely to be true than false, and that's totally fine. That's an honest position to take on something. When did wolves turn into bulldogs?
I don't know. And you know what? I'm glad you asked me. Let's see if you're going to be equally honest with me, okay?
We're going to stick on the bulldogs thing, and before I let you change.
Can I ask you? You asked me a question. I answered you. Can I ask you one before I answer you this one?
No. I promise I will let you ask me whatever you want, but I don't want to get distracted on some sort of tangent. So I'll just actually make this really simple. Probably only needs to be one question. Did a wolf ever give birth to a bulldog?
I don't think so.
You are correct. That's not how it works.
Congratulations.
Okay, now
No,
can I ask you a question?
evolution does
Can I
not
ask you-
work this way. An organism
Are they
gives
both
birth to a different
canines, bro?
organism.
Are they both canines?
I see what's up.
Are they both canines, bro? You scared?
Answer his question if you like. I'll take a back seat.
Sure. Are they both canines? Yes. In that specific example.
Oh, okay,
they
so
are.
they are the same thing then, huh?
No, they're not. One's a bulldog, one's a wolf.
They're not canines. They're not both canines.
If you want to expand it to a broader category, then it would make perfect sense that they would both be canines. But if we go,
Okay,
at
do you ever see a
at more
feline
narrow-
turn into? You ever see a feline become a canine?
Do you actually think that biologists think that happened?
Well, if everything started from a single cell organism, something would have to occur. Changing from changing from whatever that is, which is self-reproducing, to now have to bang private parts together with and find a mate and everything. It makes absolutely no sense for survival.
Maybe you should
single-celled
spend more than
organisms
3
are-
seconds thinking about it. Maybe you should read one book about
You
it
have
instead
any,
of browsing.
do you have anything
Instead
but
of browsing
ad
answers in
homs?
Genesis.
Is that all you got? Is ad hom?
These aren't ad homs. These are
Bro,
accurate descriptions. And even if I was just insulting
Okay,
you,
3
an insult is
seconds.
not an ad hom.
I have an answer. Single-celled
anyway.
organism is in a clade, but you can't change
Peterson,
the
I don't know
clades.
if you've been around this. I don't know if you've been around this theater for very long, but these guys have a huge problem with essentially fallacy to rest. Doesn't matter what you say, they're going to say it's a fallacy, and it's most likely going to
I
be.
asked the guy, dude. I asked the guy if a feline ever became a canine, and he would say, "Yeah, no, that's never happened." So for a canine to be another canine with different attributes doesn't explain evolution, bro.
Speciation occurs.
It
They don't get it, though. They don't get
By
it.
definition, it is evolution.
Dude, that's the worst example ever.
Horrible example, dude. It's still a canine, dude.
So all you're doing is showing that you have no idea about cladistics or the law of
Okay,
monophily.
so
which
you're
is
saying
material.
all
That's
the
really what you're highlighting.
information. No, you're saying all the information is already in the canine for him to eventually speciate into a bulldog, and therefore evolution because the information existed first.
No.
What are you talking about?
I'm not sure that anyone said what you just said.
Well,
They
do you
had-
know
there had to be
was the
information that was-
information in the wolf or not?
Let Planet Peterson answer. This is-
Yeah, so we'll go about this by inquiring what your personal beliefs are, and then we'll see how your own personal beliefs just absolutely shatter your own criticism. Do you think that Noah's flood happened?
I'd like an answer to my question before I
That's
engage
fucking
with that.
cute that you think that that's how it's going to work, because it's not. Do you think
Yeah,
that Noah's
you're
flood happened?
garbage, bro. I will destroy
Why
you.
would you attack someone's faith in relationship to a science? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, unless you're
Yeah.
comparing the two as if they're similar, like you have a faith and a belief
It's
in
kind of
this.
weird, man.
Who said anything about somebody's faith?
Yeah, that's part of his faith.
It's about standard of evidence, I think.
I didn't attack his faith in any way. I asked him if he thinks Noah's flood happened.
You're
Well,
saying
I
my
mean, were you
creation
there? Were
story's
any of
better.
us there?
That's what it
It's part
sounds
of
like
his
to me.
faith to believe in that.
Yeah, so are you saying you just have a belief
is-
system in
this is some
evolution because the Bible?
hardcore-
Hold on. Do you believe the Bible doesn't give you a good enough explanation, therefore evolution? Is that your argument?
I just want to point out that what the other
What's your
person
argument?
said was a hardcore, like, social justice warrior safe space way of shutting down a
Not an
conversation.
argument, dude.
No, it's called. You want to call people out
So
for being
Torah-
fallacious, but there you are, like filleting, fellatioing.
Just because the topic was
Meanwhile,
pretty
18
lame the
months
way
ago,
you're
y'all
arguing.
talk shit about scientists
Holy
all
shit.
day.
Torah, do you think that Noah's flood happened?
Yes, I do.
Okay, how many species of frog were on the ark?
I have no idea. What do you mean a frog? Is that a species?
A frog is an animal, so how many species of
Is
frog
that
do
an
you think were on the
amphibian,
ark?
or is that an amphibian, or is it just a frog?
You don't know what a frog is?
I would imagine it's an amphibian.
You are correct.
Okay, so yeah, there was two of the unclean animals. Yeah, 2 pair.
Okay,
That's how many
2 pair.
species?
So there are 4 total.
No, there was no, just 2. Sorry.
Why are you
Okay.
bringing religion into
What
this,
is
bro?
what is a kind?
Well, according to the scripture, it's different than what science declares it as. Just like you were saying that language is subjective and how it can change over time, so could categorizing categories of animals based on features.
So I'm
This
just
is
going
Is that
to
not
ask
true?
the
Is that not
I'm
true?
just going to ask the same question. What is a kind? If you were going to compare a kind to something in our taxonomic bracket, kingdom, family, class, order, family, genus, species, where would you put it?
What kind? What do you mean? If I were to find a kind, what do you mean? Can you expand on that? I don't understand what you're asking.
I'm asking you, what do you think a kind is in the biological sense? You obviously don't think it's a species because you think there were only 2 frogs, so it can't be a species. So what do you think is the closest thing to what a kind is? Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, or species?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm not that technically involved in that. I would say a kind is like something that can reproduce with something similar to itself and gain offspring that are similar as well.
And it's similar to the
That's a
genus. That's
species.
that law where they can't. Where they say
Speciation occurs. We observe speciation. So
Yeah, but a cat, felines stay felines. Yeah.
that's not
Here we
species,
go.
though. That's a clade.
So here's the fallacy in what you're saying. According to your own belief, what you're saying cannot possibly be true. Because if there were only 2 frogs on the ark,
I don't think
then
there
it
were
would-
frogs on the ark in the first place because they're
You said
a
that there
creature
were.
that can survive in water, and none of the
Hold on,
water
let him
creatures.
finish,
can
bro. Let
survive
him
in
finish.
water.
Somehow you saw where this was going ahead of time, and then you just changed your argument because you saw that you were going to get debunked.
Okay,
So I'll just tell
Can't you
the
just use
audience.
can't you
I'll
just
just
use
tell the
something
audience
else?
what happened here.
Is
So-
it just frogs? Couldn't
We
you just use something else?
Whatever animal, bro.
You're the
Okay,
one that
how?
you had no problem with frogs. So we're going with frogs. Here's the problem, everybody. In order for him to believe this, he has to believe. Here, let me look something up real quick.
Beetles make up like 90% of the animal
You're not
kingdom.
getting
If you
debunked in the
beetles-
flood with whatever you present.
Yeah.
I doubt that.
When you said a canine always remains a canine, for animals that you believe would have been on the ark, the equivalent of becoming something else, because that's in the level of the family, the equivalent of a violation of what you just said has to happen, because there are 9,000, for example, species of frogs, but there are different families of the frogs as well. So what you say, that this imaginary biological law of something always remains in its kind, is literally false according to what you believe about the world. You believe that a tiny fraction of the over 1 million species we have on the planet today radiated into all of them, which means that a change on the level of canine on that same type of level would have to occur.
I can understand what you're saying, and I will grant you what you're saying. However, my disagreement here would be I am not the God. So I don't know what he defines as a kind or what he is descriptive to tell Noah which ones to bring on. So maybe you
Then
got
why
me in the
Peter
fact
talks
that I
about
don't have
anything?
God-like knowledge, and that's fair. I didn't understand where you're going with the frogs. I still don't really grasp exactly what you're saying about the frog.
You're just telling me you have an unfalsifiable belief, and so I don't
Yeah,
know
that's what the truth is, bro. The truth is unfalsifiable. Did you know that?
So that's a circular argument when you try to specifically apply it to a worldview. So I don't understand the point in you participating in any conversation when you say this is what I believe and it's not falsifiable. So I don't understand why anybody should participate in a conversation with you or why you participate.
Oh, you're not looking for the truth?
That's the second time you tried to do that.
Yeah, you're not looking
No,
for
the owner
truth
of the
at this
server
point.
is also a Christian, by the way, just let you know.
Yeah, and you're claiming at this point, in order to engage with people, you have to present something unfalsifiable. Are you saying we can only engage with non-truths?
Second time you tried to do that.
Yeah, you're not looking
No,
for
the
the
owner.
truth.
So I don't understand why anybody should participate in a conversation with you or why you participate.
Oh, you're not looking for the truth?
That's the second time you tried to do that.
Yeah, you're not looking
No,
for
the owner
truth
of the
at this
server
point.
is also a Christian, by the way, just let you know.
Yeah, and you're claiming at this point, in order to engage with people, you have to present something unfalsifiable. Are you saying we can only engage with non-truths?
What an idiotic statement.
Do you agree the truth is unfalsifiable?
No. If something is true, is it there are things that are true that are contingent. So it's not necessarily that's falsifiable, but it can become.
Yeah, but we're
false in the
talking about
future.
the ultimate. Yeah, but we're talking about the ultimate non-contingent necessary source for intelligibility.
What? So it's not necessarily that's falsifiable, but no. If something is true, is it there are things that are true that are contingent. So it's not necessarily that's falsifiable, but it can become in a conversation with you or why you participate.
Oh, you're not looking for the truth?
That's the second time you tried.
So I don't understand why anybody should participate in a conversation with you or why you participate.
Oh, you're not looking for the truth?
That's the second time you tried to do that.
Yeah, you're not looking
No,
for the
the owner
truth
of the
at this
server
point.
is also a Christian, by the way, just let you know.
So that's a circular argument when you try to specifically apply it to a worldview. So I don't understand the point in you participating in any conversation when you say this is what I believe and it's not falsifiable. So I don't understand why anybody should participate in a conversation with you or why you participate in a conversation when you say this is what I believe and it's not falsifiable. So I don't understand why anybody should participate in a conversation with you or why you participate. So that's a circular argument when you try to specifically apply it to a worldview. So I don't understand the point in you participating in any conversation when you say this is what I believe and it's not falsifiable. So I don't understand. So I don't understand the point in you participating in any conversation when you say this is what I believe and it's not falsifiable. So I don't understand why anybody should participate in a conversation with you or why you participate.
Oh, you're not looking for the truth?
That's the second time you tried to do that.
Yeah, you're not looking
No,
for
the owner
truth
of the
at this
server
point.
is also a Christian, by the way, just let you know.
Yeah, and you're claiming at this point, in order to engage with people, you have to present something unfalsifiable. Are you saying we can only engage with non-truths?
What an idiotic statement.
Do you agree the truth is unfalsifiable?
No. If something is true, is it there are things that are true that are contingent. So it's not necessarily that's falsifiable, but it can become.
Yeah, but we're
false in the
talking about
future.
the ultimate. Yeah, but we're talking about the ultimate non-contingent necessary source for intelligibility.
No, whether or not there were frogs on Noah's Ark is not the thing you just said.
You asked me for
That's the
godlike
thing
knowledge.
you said,
You
where
asked-
your position on it, according to you, just can't be false, or you'll just change your position in real time to preserve that worldview of unfalsifiability that you have.
No,
So, I'm not interested in a theological discussion. I'd rather stay
Oh, so you don't have that. So you do have evidence for
brought this
God.
shit
You
up,
would
man.
just like to
Put it on
avoid the
yourself.
evidence, right? So you just
brought up
presented
frogs.
an argument saying in the beginning that you said I don't see any evidence for God, but then you just said I'm not willing to have a theological discussion. Is that because there might be evidence for
because
God
we're
there?
talking about frogs.
You brought up
What's your
frogs,
point
brother.
about the frogs, bro? You didn't
You
even
brought
like. I
up-
don't even understand your point. Are you saying those frogs?
Well,
if he
I
brought on
explained it
different
very
kinds and he
clearly.
explains kinds to be something different than you explain kinds to be, that it's an
No, it's
impossibility
according to
for all
you.
the frogs to get here? And are you saying that God the Creator couldn't have made those frogs by divinely intervening?
Yeah, so if you're just going to say, even if you prove me wrong, I'll just say, well, magic could have happened that made it
You
work.
granted
And
the
there's no point in
worldview.
talking
You
about anything.
granted the worldview. You're trying to do an
and I showed
internal
that it's a,
critique.
yeah, and I showed a contradiction, and then what you did was you just changed it to, oh, well, I don't have that particular belief.
What was
Now I'll just
inconsistent in
retreat
the-
and
what was
say magic
inconsistent in the
happened,
worldview?
therefore I can still be true. So
What
you
was
don't have,
inconsistent? What's
you don't have a
inconsistent?
principled position
Hold
on
on.
anything
Tori, let him
except the
talk, hold on.
source of your claims.
So what
And
was
that's just not
inconsistent?
interesting. The frog, that no variation in kind can happen.
No, that's not the argument, dude. Hold on, bro. Let me just get.
I'm the one that made the
give me a
argument.
minute.
So I
Give me a
do know
minute
what
with
it
this
was.
guy. Listen. This is
blonde hair debunked something. This guy, this guy's weak. Man.
so scripturally, when God says He made everything after its own kind, it's kind of hard to define what a kind is, right? Because we're not the arbiters of truth, and like the closest thing to a kind would be a species, right? But species, the way it's defined in modern times,
that's
is kind of
false.
arbitrary, right? How do we define the species? It comes down to whether they can mate or not. But there's animals that aren't viable; they don't have viable offspring, and if they do have a viable offspring, their offspring seem to be infertile, like ligers, right?
Even if
and certain donkey and mule horse mixes, they don't have viable offspring, even just one generation. So are they all of a sudden a different species?
You see what happened here, Lion?
even if you take that,
Hold on, bro.
Yeah, donkeys
Clearly,
are
no,
different species.
he's talking to me, and I'm going to respond to him, and you can wait your turn. Even if that's the position you take on kind, then that's completely untenable with believing that there actually was an ark and two of every kind on it, because there's millions of species alive. That boat
You don't even
could
have the
not
narrative for
have
that.
had,
Hold on,
could
You don't
not
even
have
have
had.
the
wait a second.
millions
Hold
of
on, just get a
species on
minute. I gotta go anyways. I just want a minute with you.
So that boat
ahead.
could not have had every species on it, even if we ignore fish and whatever stays in the could have stayed in the water. You're not going to get all the other land stuff and everything on that boat. That's not possible. And also, if you take that worldview, but we just know that it only says two. Well, for that case, that would be, yeah, I guess actually it would stop at you couldn't.
That's
cram
7
them all
pairs of
onto
clean
the boat.
animals.
Yeah, so there were 7 pairs of clean
That's
animals,
worse.
and only one or two pairs of unclean animals.
Yeah,
And there was no amphibians, no aquatic life. They didn't need aquatic life for amphibians. Those animals
but
are,
what about
they can survive in the flood.
You don't know.
Now we can have.
First
Hold
of
on,
all,
dude.
that's
Hold on, bro.
completely
Hold on,
false,
bro. Just
because
give
you
me a
can't
second.
put an amphibian in salt water.
Okay.
All right, dude. All
And
right,
it doesn't
all right.
say
Just
that.
hear me
You're
out, dude. All right.
You're just
Oh
using
my
that as a
gosh.
rescue device.
No, it actually talks about all the animals, and it doesn't talk about Noah bringing in whales or salmon or
Doesn't
anything
talk
like
about
that.
him
Dude. He didn't have
bringing
aquarium.
anything.
It doesn't talk about him having aquariums on the ark or insects or anything like that. But just hear me out for a second. Just hear me out for a
The
second.
only
Just hear
thing
me
we
out
know
for a
what was on there
second.
was
Just hear me
a
out, dude. I just need 30 seconds, bro. Right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you can have all felines have one common ancestor. All canines have one common ancestor that Noah brought in the ark. Just one pair, dude. And from that one pair, you can have all the variety of canines that we have on the earth today. That's not evolution, dude. The genetic code is already the genetic code already has the. It's not due to genetic mutation or anything like that.
It's literally what
Buddy,
it's due to.
Bro,
you have no idea what you're talking about.
Within the code itself, the genetic expression, the potential for the genetic expression is already there. So from a Chihuahua to a Great Dane, all the genetic expression is already locked inside of the genetic genome. It doesn't have to mutate or anything like that. It's already present there by design. But the thing is, with everything out there its own kind, the genetic expression can only get pushed so far. It can't turn into another species. Go ahead.
You literally believe that it did because how many canines were on the ark?
I just told you one pair.
So you do believe. So there's more than one species of canine alive today. So what you just said, even you don't believe.
I don't see you say that. You can assert that with confidence. I don't believe that there's more than one species of canine in the world today. Somebody the other day was bringing up
the same species.
Dude, all canines are the same species.
That is
whether it's a Chihuahua, a Great Dane, an Australian Shepherd. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the size difference. It doesn't matter the different types of genetic expression. Their fur. It has nothing to do with the genome. The genome is the same. It's still a canine.
Buddy, wolves have more than twice as many chromosomes as foxes do, and you're telling me they're the same species?
Oh, let me verify that. Last time, this other guy said that the African spotted dog had more chromosomes, and it was a different species, right? Yes, it is a different species, and it doesn't even have the same ancestor as canine, so it's not a canine.
No,
it's not a canine.
No, it does have the same ancestor. It's just higher up in the clade.
No, you can't prove that. You can assert that with confidence. The idea that the black spotted dog comes from the same ancestor as a Chihuahua. How do you know?
Why are you laughing like a little girl, bro?
According to you, it's true because according to you, there was only one canine on the ark. So literally,
I have a
according
cousin
to you,
6 years old. She giggles like that.
What kind of how do you do that? How do you live like that? You don't know that they're related. You believe that they're related.
Man. Just relax.
Listen, buddy, you believe in evolution without evolving. You can't make this clown show up if you tried, man.
Just because the black
data
African
and the
dog
you brought up there. I love how you used data and science and logic and reasoning to argue your position. He said sarcastically. What's up, other dude? I can't speak. I don't know what those symbols are.
My name's
so.
Lion. But just because the black spotted African dog might look like a dog, right? Has a tail, it has 4 legs and paws, just like felines do, doesn't mean that it came from the same common ancestor. Just like hyenas, they look like dogs. They're not dogs. They're not canines, dude.
It's important to point out that obviously Lion's got this biblical worldview, and he uses the word, he's using species as kind. All right, so
Well, today I learned that dogs aren't dogs.
I'm just pointing out that I don't think this guy, Eric, that's your name. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously he's sort of taking the Kent Hovind approach with it, right?
Well, what kind of dog do you have? What kind of fish do you have?
Lion just said that dogs aren't dogs.
No, I said the black spotted dog is not a dog, even though it's named a dog. It's not a dog.
Is not a dog. So you're just saying you think it's misnamed. I mean, even I agree that some things are misnamed. For example, blue-green algae is actually bacteria, so that it's not algae. You know, there's a type of frog called the mountain chicken. That's obviously a pretty bad name. How is it that you determine if something is a canine or not?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's
Well, it's
right
not
now,
genetically.
the way that
African
we
spotted dogs
classify
are more
hold on, the way
closely
that we
genetically related to dogs than
the way
any
that
other
we-
form of life on the planet.
the way that we classify species right now is arbitrary, dude.
Nope.
It's
A
wishy-washy.
little bit. You can say the categories are arbitrary, but the relationships are not arbitrary. And according to the arbitrary category of canine, the African spotted dog is more closely related genetically to other dogs than it is to any other form of life. So
Okay,
it's
so
a canine.
in your opinion, therefore, it is a canine by the mind of man. Do you agree that if there was a mind of God, there might be a category we don't know about yet?
You realize that's not an argument at all? That's I said nothing at all.
Yeah, all you did was
Can I
say
ask something?
God might have opinions. I agree, and that doesn't prove anything about anything.
Well,
Well,
it just
God
shows the
exists,
absurdity in your argument. The absurdity in your argument that if
There's no
that is a
absurdity in my argument.
possibility, yeah, because you're assuming that this is an internal critique on the God world. So if the God does exist, that is a possibility in your mind. Therefore, your critique is absurd.
No, there's literally nothing wrong with the critique because while the categories may be arbitrary, the relationships are not.
Yeah, and you're talking about the ultimate source for intelligibility, which might have some more information about those relationships that you don't have.
Oh, could you share it with me?
Yo, bro, hold on.
I would be able to see you're not even listening if you thought that was a
You can
response.
shut up again. Thank you.
Yeah, you're done, bro.
So, real quick, I looked up your claim that foxes don't have the same amount of chromosomes as dogs, and you are right. They have less than half of the chromosomes that dogs have. It says here foxes have 34 chromosomes while dogs have 78. So that to me means that they were never related. They never came from the same common ancestor.
Oh, jeez.
Just because they look alike, right? For all we know, they could be more related to ferrets.
Yeah, you have evidence
No,
that
we
they are.
know how to do genetic testing for relatedness, and they're not more related to ferrets.
Yeah, and according to geneticists, we're related to bananas by 66%, and
No,
chimpanzees
we are
like
not.
90.
No.
Yeah, dude, look it up.
No, I
All right,
have
yeah,
looked
pull
up.
it
I literally
All right.
wrote a book about this. I know where the thing about bananas came from. It came from journalists not understanding what was being talked about with. It's a long story. I could tell you, but I'm telling you that we are not 60% related to bananas. It's a
Okay, fine,
very
but-
unfortunate
but-
misunderstanding.
Hold on. So
Most of us are not that closely related to bananas. However, all right.
However,
I want to let some other people get in. So no takes. Did you want to get in?
Oh, no, I don't even hear a topic.
I wanted to say something.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I actually have a question for Mr. Planet Peterson.
yeah, go
All
for
right,
it.
let's let Agent since he piped up. So go ahead, Agent. Go ahead and ask the question.
Yeah, I just want to ask Tora and the guys, what is a canine dog? Because there is no breed. Do you mean German Shepherd as a species?
I don't really get it. All domesticated dogs are members of the same species. It's like Canis lupus
Right.
familiaris or something like that.
So I ask, what did they mean by canine? It has no meaning.
Canid is a family in the taxonomic hierarchy. So
Ah.
All right. So I have a genuine question here. If we take, would you accept a species as individuals that can reproduce viably?
I mean, there are multiple different biological definitions of a species, and none of them are really wrong. It's just it's like philosophically kind of a mess. It's hard to, like objectively pin it. But a group of closely interacting species that are capable of breeding and producing fertile offspring is a pretty good definition of species. But it
No,
doesn't
like
really-
organism instead of species at the beginning, right? Like, you said
Yeah, my bad,
right?
yeah.
No, just to clarify. Because I was thinking about it recently, and the idea of there being species of prokaryotes, right? And they don't reproduce in that same way. So I was wondering if you knew how the species of prokaryotes was taxonomically classified.
At one point, I did know. I did a podcast episode on this a few years ago, and actually had a laboratory scientist do that part because he knows a lot about that kind of stuff. I don't remember what the conventions they use for prokaryotes specifically are off the top of my head. Sorry.
Would it be like some kind of genomic comparison, like a certain percentage of? Like,
That's certainly going to be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was just curious. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Who's next?
I have a question for Planet Peterson.
Sure thing.
My name's Brenda. I'm transgender. Is it true that the Y chromosome is basically inactive when you're an adult?
Oh, I don't know about when you're an adult. Maybe it is. It probably is because even for women, one of the X chromosomes in every cell is deactivated. So you only need one X chromosome. So then why would you really need a Y chromosome? And yeah, that SRY gene activates. I don't know how many weeks into your development it is. A certain number of weeks. There's more than just that gene on that chromosome. But yeah, probably. I don't know. That's a really good question. I wouldn't be surprised if the answer is yes. I mean, I'll look up a little more info and then I'll go ahead and talk and I'll tell you what I find.
Well, I like making jokes. So basically, what you're saying is all the men here are actually women.
I mean, if you take people that
Yeah.
are like hardcore anti-trans or whatever and say no, gender is biological sex and it's X
Yep.
chromosomes, it's
Yes,
like, well, in that case, you may have Y chromosomes, but they don't do anything. So I don't know.
Thank you.
Brenda,
I'll be here all night. I'll be here all night. I'll try the deal.
You're hilarious, Brenda. That's all I have to say.
Repent.
So this is telling me that there are genes on the Y chromosomes that are expressed and used in the production of sperm cells in the adult.
Oh,
So in the gonads, they would be active, and there are some Y-linked genes involved in regulating expression of other genes, like height and a few other things. Okay.
Is it true that the male chromosome is shrinking and will eventually disappear?
Well, I mean, we don't know if it'll disappear. I mean, it could. But yeah, it's getting smaller.
Was it cold out?
I was in the pool! It looks like
that's, the end of, that's all the jokes I have for tonight.
Oh,
yeah, but the X and the Y chromosome, they share genes too. It looks like not very many, but they do share a few. Anyways, next.
Oh well,
I
we
guess
could trigger. We
go
could trigger everybody. How many genders are there, Planet Peterson?
420.
None. It's a social construct.
420.
No, gender is a biological thing.
No, that's a personality you're talking about.
No, that's different.
No, it's not. How do you know that? You can't know anything.
Oh, that's, yeah, that's arguing in bad faith, because that's the real argument.
Planet Peterson. So like, what is your top? Like, what do? You go around, you debunk flat Earth, you debunk God, you debunk. What else do you do? Like, what else do you do for fun?
I like to play video games.
Okay, so like you think that you ought to be doing these things? Like it's something.
Yeah,
I
think education is valuable and important. Even if I'm wrong, deliberating about ideas is extremely important.
Okay, to what end?
To try to, because I think that being ignorant is worse than not being ignorant, and I don't quite see how a society, especially a very complex society, can possibly flourish if it's not intellectually curious and rigorous in its intellectual.
To what end?
I just said to flourish.
Yeah, to what end? For what reason ought we flourish? I was told.
I don't think you can
without anything.
One at a time. I think No Tanks was talking.
I don't really. I mean, people is like a very famous philosophical thing. You can't derive an ought from an is. Now you can give your take on why you think those things are valuable, and it'll be arbitrary. But you may be able to find 10 billion people. There aren't that many people, but whatever. If you can find 10 billion people that share that same basic desire, then that starts to become the best kind of arbitrary reason we can possibly find. If there's nearly unilateral agreement.
Seems like
human beings unilaterally, except for those that are deeply, deeply disturbed or unwell, cannot tolerate being in a state of pain and misery and hunger and suffering and illness and death. And so we try to build a world that is not like that. Whether you're a religious person or not, I've never heard of a society that doesn't try to do those things, unfortunately, except to
other people. It's an unavoidable consequence of having of being a conscious being, that you're going to invoke morality, even if it's, in this case that you're painting, this picture you're painting for me, it's just some sort of preference or subjectiveness. It's not actual. So like we'll never really know in this view, like if we're doing the right thing, the wrong thing, we're moving towards the truth or away from it. But it seems like there was a time where the population was mostly religious flat earthers. I mean, was that the right thing at the time?
I am completely unaware of a time in history where the vast majority of people were flat earthers.
But did they discover that the Earth was a globe at one point?
So I don't have. I promise I'm answering your question. It's just going to take more than 10 seconds. I don't have any insight into. I'm really sorry, but somebody is pounding at my door. I promise I'll be right back.
Convenient.
The suspense. We're getting somewhere.
Right or no?
Dr. James Tour. Here for his revenge.
That's James Tour's music.
Okay, it was somebody just trying to sell something, but they knocked like 3 times, so I thought it was like an emergency or something.
Anyways,
no, no.
Oh yeah, we were just recapping. Yeah, I guess we were at the. There was a point in time where the somebody somewhere, doesn't matter who, discovered that the Earth was a globe. So prior to that, the Earth was not a globe. So that would have been the time when the majority of the population was under that impression that the world around them, as they perceived it, was correlative to the true state of affairs.
So no, I absolutely don't agree with that for a couple of reasons. One would be we don't know what the majority of people thought back then because we don't have access to any surveys or polls or anything. So most people thought the Earth was flat until Eratosthenes and whoever else were able to demonstrate scientifically that it's a globe. We don't know that. In order to say that, you'd have to make the claim that the default position of the Earth, of the shape of the Earth, would be flat. And it's like I don't understand why anybody would think that, because the moon is very clearly not flat. So I don't know why anybody would think that the planet they live on would be different than the closest thing for them to observe in space, which is, a ball. But, I used to not, when people would say, like, when flat earthers would say the Bible says it's flat, I used to be like, well, I disagree with everything they say, and that's one of them. And even as an atheist who debates Christians, whenever atheists would say, like, the Bible's a flat earth book, I'd be like, yeah, I think you're just kind of being a Reddit atheist here. But after listening to some scholars, I think it probably is the case that people writing at least some of the oldest books in the Old Testament probably did think that the Earth actually was flat, which is interesting.
stationary.
but-
And
What do you think would lead people to the understanding that like water is a tool for establishing a horizontal plane of reference, that motion is relative to an inertial frame, right, or something that's stationary, so motion is relative, speed is relative, and that something is necessary and fundamental for our reality to exist? That would just be flat earth and religion. Like, when do you think people turn, and why did they turn away from these ideas? And why, because you're putting it out there that it's better to, that you should be spending your time fighting flat earthers and Christians, and to be a Christian or a theist of any kind would just be to say that there is some necessary foundational, element of reality that has to account for all the things that we have in reality. And then to be a flat earther would just be to say that water is a tool that we use for establishing a horizontal plane of reference, and stationary is a reference frame that we assume to measure motion. These things seem necessary, but you're saying that we should fight
stationary
against
is not. We do not assume stationary. We assume relative velocities, I guess you could say, and relative to the ground, I'm not moving, so I can describe my motion without invoking how fast the Earth is spinning with me on it. But also, I find this really weird the way you say this is what this member of this group does, thinks, believes, or whatever. Like, your characterization of Christianity is just literally
Am I wrong?
false.
Is that
A
wrong? So
Christian,
Christian
a
or
Christian
any
is
type of
not
religion?
somebody. A Christian is not somebody who says that I have this necessary grounding for whatever. A Christian,
like a firm foundation, like God is the rock. They don't espouse a foundation.
they might say that, but guess what? A Muslim says that. So that's not
Yeah,
what Christianity is. Christianity is the faith in I mean, there have been different flavors of Christianity. Pretty much everybody today is basically for the most part, like a Nicene Christian, although there are Unitarians out there. I guess Unitarianism isn't really Nicene, I suppose. And there were schisms afterwards, but they still all believe in a triune Jesus, who was the only begotten Son and who is God at the same time, however the hell that's supposed to work. So
Yeah, it's a mutual reference, so we can make any kind of predication or truth claims.
that's presuppositionalism, and not all Christians are presuppositionalists.
Well, I mean, I guess just to wrap it up with Peterson, I guess what I'm asking is, with it being the case that in reality people will establish any kind of vertical change to be from the horizontal reference, whether above it or below it, and parallel to another established horizontal, that being the case, and measuring motion to be relative to a stationary frame of reference, whether it's moving in another, relative to something else or not, zeroes out to be able to measure weight, motion, etc. And then throwing the religious in there, people, in order to make any kind of truth claims, like it's true that evolution's, true, or it's true that the moon is round, that there must be some sort of foundation to predicate upon. Why are you seeking to destroy these foundational things that are required to make any claims?
I reject your specific belief that the God you believe in is the necessary foundation.
What is necessary? Then maybe what is it then that you have found then? Like, instead of that being necessary, what is it that you have found is necessary to make truth claims on? How do you measure, height, distance relative to a plane or whatever? And how do you measure motion? That does not require the three things found to be necessary, in my opinion.
Sure. So I'm going to slightly change what I said a little bit, because I'm an agnostic atheist. Maybe God is, but what you're doing here is you're conflating proximate and ultimate explanations and references to things. And here's what I mean by that. If I hear outside my window, right? If I hear that outside my window, I could assume various things: a horse, a zebra, or a unicorn. Now, I'm going to assume it's a horse because I don't live in Africa and I don't think unicorns exist. So I am not invoking God in that. What I'm invoking is an experience in reality that I have. I'm a filthy empiricist in so many ways, and we all are in so many ways. Now, I can sort of grant to you that, like, you may have a valid argument for, like, the way tag is structured or whatever, that the only reason I even can know that is because a God exists or whatever. I don't want to get into, like, a meta conversation about tag or anything like that. But what the fuck was that? Can we, whoever's doing that, please don't do that. But anyways, I can't imagine how even you would disagree with me that even as an agnostic atheist, I am justified in assuming that what I heard out my window was most likely to be a horse instead of a zebra or a unicorn. So do you agree that I would be justified?
I do agree that you can point to the uniformity of nature, that the past will resemble the future, because reality is not contradictory, and there's a reason for that.
So I can rest that on just a different set of axioms. I can just rest it on that the universe is governed by the laws of nature, which really aren't immutable, but they are consistent. I could ground that the future will be like the past because the B theory of time is true. I could ground it. I mean, I could ground it in all kinds of things. And the only thing I care about demonstrating is that worldview useful or not? And because what I'm broadly describing is a scientific attitude or approach toward making inquiry, because it's just as plain as anything that's been extraordinarily successful, I'm justified in leaning on it for explanations of things by its utility. and
Yeah, you're
that works
justified,
for
but
me.
you don't have, yeah, but you're missing a foundation. That's okay. So like when a flat
No.
earther has a foundational like a premise like geometry, like the shortest distance between 2 points, a straight line, a water level is a tool for establishing a horizontal plane of reference because the points of water establish a coplanar straight line of coplanar straight line, shortest distance between points. That would be foundational upon geometry. To remove that,
In a way, yeah.
right? Yeah, that'd be foundational. Like what is the foundation?
Yeah.
Actually,
for
that claim is
the globe?
false.
Yeah, but it's not really foundational because I can agree that water broadly has those properties, but then we want to ask why. And so like when you're talking about level, what does level mean? It means perpendicular to the acceleration of gravity. Now you can balk at that, but I can demonstrate to you that there must be an acceleration that is the reason a bubble level, for example, reads level. Because if you take a bubble level and hold it flat to the ground, but you spin in a circle, the bubble won't be in the middle. And so if all level means is you're holding the thing perpendicular to the ground, then why is acceleration messing with it? Well, if acceleration is causing it to move, then what we do in physics, and like this really basic level kind of physics is, if you want to describe characteristics of something via motion, you have to describe the vectors involved with it. When it's at rest, all there is a downward acceleration. And I can demonstrate that by introducing a different acceleration that A, changes its position, and B, changes its position in a predictable way by plugging in 9.8 meters per second of acceleration downward and whatever the lateral acceleration is, and that will describe where the bubble ends up. Or a better one for that would be, it would predict and describe what angle to hold the level at so that the bubble does rest in the middle.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
Can I add something? He also mischaracterized at least what it takes to be a flat earther. It's not only believing those things. You also have to reject all other evidence of the globe Earth. So just saying what it takes to be a flat earther is to believe those things isn't true. You also have to ignore the work of all.
Yo, is this S.Hawking show or what is going on?
I just want to make a point because someone else is talking. I get that you guys don't like when I do that.
No, I had something I want to say, but you talked, and now I forgot it.
Okay, yeah, you're the only one to get in.
May I make a point? I feel that the no tanks actually, I was a staunch Christian for more than 30 years, and I feel like that religion is being misrepresented by no tanks. It didn't stop me from being a scientist. At no stage did I think that God was a prerequisite for observations. I was invited, actually, after receiving my PhD, to sign that petition, PhDs who don't agree with evolution. And
these guys just don't understand the argument at all.
I was still speaking, and when I was invited to do so, it occurred to me, I've got no basis for saying that other scientists are wrong in their discipline because I have a religious belief. That's not how anything works, and so I feel like you're completely misrepresenting, in my view, how religion should work. You can have a belief.
You don't know what faith is, dude. Obviously.
Let him finish. Let him finish.
Okay. You can make that position, but I'm, as Peterson very eloquently just described, there is no reason to think that God is a prerequisite, and you need to be very careful. The surface of water does not form a straight line. It forms what's called an equipotential surface, which is to say that the gravitational and rotational potential at every point along the surface is approximately equal in mean. That's very different from saying that's a straight line and it's horizontal. Anyway, sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to say, as a former Christian, if I was still a Christian now, I'd be outraged by that characterization of my faith.
Oh, that's not hold now. That's okay. So, I mean, like I did put it to all religions, and like to define a religion, just would just be whatever it is that you ultimately reference, the authority that you reference to know whether something is true or not, and what's the foundation for any kind of claim that you're gonna make. Okay, that's it. So every religion, whatever it is that you're gonna ultimately reference to know whether something's true or not.
But you referenced establishing a horizontal plane. That doesn't mean flat Earth. I mean, you can't assume a horizontal plane equals flat Earth, and just say that it's coplanar with everywhere else. You'd have to establish two horizontal planes and then compare the two, and then you'd have to get them so far apart that it's difficult to do. You'd have to do it
You're imagining some kind of model, you guys. Like I see Peterson has a finger painting of a model, but we all know that horizontal is an orientation, and that orientation can be established. I would just put it to the room, right, for you guys, so you can all know it to be true. Just go out into reality and make 3 points of equal elevation, and let everybody know how you did it, and come back.
Yeah, I've seen this done, and it unequivocally proves that the Earth's surface is curved, because I've seen people go to mountaintops and then they use a level, and they level the water, and then they aim their camera right in line with that level site. And what they do is they point the camera at a mountain that is in the distance, that is higher than where they are, and yet the peak of the mountain is below the level line. So
yeah, the beauty of the water level is you don't cite it. You don't have to cite the water level. What you can do is you can just measure the distance, the shortest distance between points established by the water level. And any optics, like if we're all like wondering, hey, is there some kind of optical phenomenon going on? We can remove that from the equation and just measure based on axiom shortest distance between points that this is a truth, mathematical truth.
What does that mean? Shortest distance between 2 points. That doesn't mean flat Earth.
that has nothing to do with the shape of the ground.
No, yeah, what we do is we have to measure the shape of the ground. No, that's ridiculous. Like the shape of the ground is measuring the vertical change from the horizontal, up or down in reference to the horizontal. Yeah, the Earth goes up and down. Yeah.
So we can put, for instance, a GPS receiver on a ship and watch the height of the ship change relative to the reference ellipsoid. So claiming that water is flat is demonstrably untrue. We can use GPS to show that there are, in fact, hundreds of meters of deviation from the reference ellipsoid. So your claim that water just forms a flat or orthogonal level, a horizontal level, is demonstrably false. We can do measurements with yes, water level over the oceans. Even ignoring wave action, you can see hundreds of meters. Can you not interrupt me while I'm talking, because it indicates that you're not actually listening to what I say?
So you did it then. You did the 3 points of equal elevation.
Not me personally. I work with professional surveyors, but when we validate, for instance, satellite altimetry missions, one of the ways that we do it is by putting GPS on ships, or buoys, as you Americans like to call them. I would pronounce it buoys. You put a GPS receiver in there, and then you cross-check it against altimetry readings from the same for the same location. And when we do this, we can see that there are quite significant deviations in mean sea level, up to, as I say, of a scale of more than 100 meters. So the claim that the oceans are flat is just measurably untrue.
Yeah, I agree. The oceans are up and down, there's swells and all over the place.
No, even beyond that, the global mean sea level shows systematic deviations of more than 100 meters. There is a thing called the Indian Ocean geoid low, which is 100 meters below, which is just off the southern tip of India, and sea level there is 100 meters below the reference ellipsoid. Sorry, Peterson, this is your event. Carry on.
Yeah, Peterson was going to tell us how he established a straight line to measure whether something was higher or lower, like the sea level to be lower.
You can use water. I don't know what you call it, but you put water in like surgical tubing and make a U out of it, and it levels, and then you get your line of sight so that those two ends perfectly line up. And people are actually putting it in the Omnipresence text chat just above this here, a demonstration of that. So, for example, they have a 187-foot tall building that is completely below the water line.
Yeah, that's another. That's another. I know you like finger painting. That's another, yeah, that's another finger painting of a side view, which would be an interpretation of why they're seeing compression from the front view. You know what I'm saying? For the water, yeah. So they're seeing these things merge into like a vanishing point in the distance. It's like at 20-mile distance, and he's saying, well, I will interpret this this observation as from the side, and then draw it in a finger painting from the side. But the water level tool is not a tool that you sight down. It's a tool that the U-shaped tool that is the water level tool I'm referencing, and that's proven to be a tool to establish a straight line between points at the same elevation.
If it's a straight line, then it can't be pointing over top of the taller building, because the height, if the Earth is flat, that is, because that taller building is taller than where you are.
Yeah,
like a laser straight line would go to the base of that building. And like if we had a laser pointer that we could shine, and this isn't a laser pointer, but it does what a laser pointer does, and it goes over the top of the building. That is exactly what would happen if the surface of the Earth was curving away from you.
Yeah, I mean the surface of the Earth. Like so, I don't want to get all into it, right? But there's tools that you can use to establish elevation change. You can do differential leveling. You use an auto level, right, which establishes another horizontal plane of reference and a measuring rod. And what you could do, like me and you could do together, is you could have the auto level. You could pull it away, right, on the ground. Just keep it like the bottom of the stick on the ground. Say we start at 5 feet, and then you start counting. You say, oh look, it's 5'1", 5'2", 5'3", right? As you read a reading on the stick, that means you're going like downhill, right? Because it's really tall on the stick.
You didn't listen at all. It's like you didn't listen at all. No thanks.
I don't even know what you're
saying.
You're
saying that the surface of the Earth, the dirt goes up, that it's dropping or rising.
No thanks is doing.
It certainly isn't rising, because I don't think the Earth is hollow or concave.
So that mountain is
wait,
not rising.
No thanks is doing. The Earth isn't flat because of mountains, because of topography, because of mountains and stuff.
That's how we measure the Earth.
It's not I don't. Yeah, I could be wrong, and no thanks, but that doesn't feel like a good faith position.
It's just how we measure the Earth.
I don't know. No, people who believe in a flat Earth, of which there are multiple people in this room, do not think the Earth is not flat because of mountains. It has to do with a bunch of stuff about how either mean sea level would work, or
Yeah, I don't adopt that dichotomy. Maybe I don't know. Planet Peterson thought that was the true dichotomy. I don't know, but like if I measure, the mountain, which is definitely going up, like it's definitely going up. You're saying it's also going down in a different way.
I just don't want to
of the Earth
with a bad faith, argument. That's all.
The surface of the Earth curves away from you, so it's from whatever height you want to pick. A peak that is higher, it doesn't have to be a peak, it can be a building like those pictures are showing, but something that's taller than you, a perfectly straight line, which I would call a tangent line for my belief about the geometry of the surface of the Earth, will go over the top of it. But if the Earth is flat, like for example, there's another picture that's up there of a lighthouse, and they have a line, they're basically looking through like a spotting scope kind of thing. They have it set to level. Now that lighthouse is 154 feet tall, so if the Earth is flat, then the elevation that these people are at is 6 feet, then that site can only point at the bottom 6 feet of the lighthouse. And I do agree that because the lighthouse is getting smaller, because of how far away it is, then the effect is there's a little bit of haziness in it's less precise. Like, am I pointing at exactly 6 feet up on the lighthouse? But what it can't do is point over the top of it. That can't happen if the Earth is flat. But that's exactly what happened, and that's exactly what would happen if the Earth is a globe.
So I have a question. Can you address that observation? No thanks.
Yeah, something optical going on there, because with your eyes closed, you can establish a horizontal plane using a water level.
Wait, was that
not over long distance? And
the water level and the straight water level will point over the top of a building that is higher up, that is taller than you are.
I don't know. That's
not how it works if the Earth is flat.
What do you mean? So if I got the water level, right? The tool that establishes a horizontal plane. If I carry that over top of the surface of water, it would be deviating from like a lake. You're saying it would be the water level would be rising in elevation.
I have no idea what you're trying to say. You get a water level, it establishes a perfectly straight line. If you look at something far away that's taller than you, but your straight line goes over the top of it, that's because the surface of the Earth curving away from you, which is what a globe does, is the explanation that satisfies that.
Yeah, but every day that changes. Every day that would change, like the distance below the water level that it is. Yeah, that would change.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was confusing what you're saying. It's kind of like you were saying that the water level, the tool establishes a straight line, and then the water below it is dropping away from the tangent established by the tool, the water level. So the water's dropping away from the water.
The surface of the Earth curves away from you if the Earth is a globe. I think that's what you're saying. I don't know why you're putting it that way, but that's a belief I have, and I have empirics to back that up. So I don't want to keep talking about this exact same topic forever, but that's where we're at.
Might I ask a question of Peterson?
Listen, every time these things get thrown out like some kind of poisoning of the well, you can't you can't have a conversation about a straight line in reality. Planet Peterson believes that straight lines exist. He believes the Earth's a globe, that it has a radius, which is a straight line, that has a diameter, a straight line. He believes these things. You guys want to say that doesn't exist, and then I don't know, poison the well by saying whatever terms you're using. It's a little bit strange.
Yeah, a radius is orthogonal to a tangent. That's by definition. But I wanted to ask Planet Peterson a question. You just used the term that this is something you believe. And often I've heard belief used in sort of what I regard as an inaccurate way, as though it's a dichotomy, whereas I consider the conclusions that I reach something that I have a given confidence in, proportional to my evidence supporting that. Whereas people with Christians, for instance, people with religious faith, tend to view belief as either on or off. You either believe it or you don't. Is that something you have any opinions on?
I don't know. That was a little odd to me. Because it sounds like you're saying you either think it's true or you think it's false, instead of claiming, well, I have a specific degree of confidence about something. Yeah. I think everybody thinks that way, but not about everything. So, somebody it's not like this is unique to religion. I mean, people who are partisan hacks, people who are New England Patriots fans, or whatever, they're all capable of saying, oh no, I don't believe it. I know it's true. Or like there's no say, like you're with it or against it or something like that. I mean, anybody's capable of thinking that way and applying it in different places. But no, I mean, people don't really sit around and think about why they believe what they believe very much, except for weird online people like me. So, I've read a lot of books about like the cognitive science about how like how beliefs are formed, for example. And we all take shortcuts because we all have mental heuristics. And that's fine. Most people are just going through life. And so that's my answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question. I have a really quick one for you, Mr. Planet.
Make it snap.
Yeah, it's going to be quick. You obviously don't have to tell us what it is if you did answer, but has Sabur reached out to you to advise you what really irked him?
No, he hasn't said anything to me. I think he's live streaming right now. I got a notification on my phone I don't know why I got a notification for him because I don't subscribe to him or anything, but
he's such a tease. He brings up these things and he never fully elucidates on them.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he tagged me in the video description. Maybe that's why I got a notification. But no, Sabur's never attempted to talk to me or anything.
Wait, you don't want to trip to London?
No.
Yeah.
His live stream doesn't even have anything to do with science. It was about that terrorist attack in India last week.
Well, Peterson.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. If you were presented evidence of this impossible flat Earth, would you consider it?
Yeah, I mean, I have talked to all kinds of flat earthers. I listen to what they say, and I think about it. I try to figure out the logical conclusion of what they're saying. So yeah, I mean, I do that.
Amazing. Thank you.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, just a question. Neil deGrasse Tyson holds the belief that you shouldn't spend time trying to
you have to engage in the discourse because that's how you foster an intellectually curious population, and that's the only way that groups of people that are wrong about something are going to be able to change their minds. And it's not the only way, but it would certainly be better than forming a conclave of echo chambers. Like, it's possible for progress to happen there, but it would occur at an unbelievably slow rate.
Yeah, so it sounds like you don't have any hatred, or you don't particularly want violence upon anyone that disagrees with mainstream.
I guess you missed the conversation he had with me when he muted me and he didn't want to talk with me. Called me a troll. I guess you missed that. Good name.
That's so. I just want to ask: do you think that Neil deGrasse Tyson might have been talking about improving educational standards to provide people with sufficient understanding that they should not accept? They should be able to distinguish.
Are you claiming we're unlearned? Is that your claim? Flat earthers are unlearned people?
And nobody should accept Neil deGrasse Tyson's assertion that that the magma is moving independent of the Earth, and then the air is moving independent of the Earth, and that the water is moving independent of the Earth, and the Earth's rotating in and out of an air bulge, water bulge. Nobody should adopt that way of thinking. That's unhealthy.
Well, I think a better line of reasoning, if I may, Eric, that you must be a very strong, advocate for freedom of speech then, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously then you can hold it up as a contrast. Freedom of speech being the right to be wrong in public.
I mean, it means so much more than that, but that's part of it.
That's my favorite definition. I really like that one. So that's why I said you must be a very strong advocate for freedom of speech.
Well, very strong. So strong that my first question, he didn't answer it and he muted me and he turned me down. That's how much he loves free speech.
Oh, it's okay. I muted you after the 5th time I answered your question, and after the 10th time of you falling back on an incorrect dichotomy. Then I muted you because you proved yourself to be not worth.
Let's talk about topics. You hear that, Andy? This is your man here. You're full of it, bro. You're full of it.
So do you think the FAA was wrong in saying Katy Perry is not an astronaut?
I think the FAA was wrong in saying Katy Perry was not an astronaut. I don't know what the definition of an astronaut is, but I thought it was really annoying that they called themselves astronauts. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy, right? Especially when a whole bunch of men are the ones that were controlling all of it, and then they try to make a big thing about feminism or whatever.
Oh yeah, from when I joined in. Oh, that's funny.
Wait, just to be clear, you think they're not astronauts because you think they didn't go that high, not because of the actual status of being an astronaut. You just think space doesn't exist.
This is a retarded question.
Oh, okay, sorry. There was an interesting observation taken of where they saw the moon from there.
Yeah, the moon was supposed to be underneath the Earth. What was that all about?
No, I think you are all really not taking in how far the moon is from Earth.
All right, go ahead, Riggs.
Yeah, if you were looking for a god, what evidence would you accept scientifically?
Oh, you can't have scientific evidence of miracles. That doesn't even make any sense.
So then you admit that basically your epistemology for even acknowledging that there could be a creator does not allow such activity.
What I'm telling you is I don't think science can demonstrate that a god exists. I'm open to somehow God demonstrating that he exists.
By what evidence?
I'm not sure, but if God is omnipotent, then God knows exactly how to do that, and clearly God hasn't.
If God rearranged all the stars in the sky to be like, "What's up, guys? I'm real. I'm here." That would be pretty clear evidence.
So you guys are appealing to the miracles, which would be.
But would that be scientific evidence, which you hold the highest esteem?
There's
If the stars just moved around all of a sudden.
Yeah. So there's kind of two different ways around this. I could I think that was the monarch said it. I think, but that specific example, I can believe that would convince me. Which is fine with me, but I'd really just be arguing from incredulity. And there are things that science couldn't explain 100 years ago, like the flight mechanics of a bee. But does that mean that it would have been appropriate to say, well, yeah, science can explain the flight mechanics of a bee, and that's because it's not science. Angels are underneath the bee, and every time the bee flies, the angels go to keep it up. Well, obviously that's kind of silly and stupid.
Yeah, it would just be that it's true that there's a reason that the bee is able to fly, and that truth is ultimately dependent on God's mind and the design of the bee. That wouldn't be some weird story.
Wait, so I just want to clarify the end of my point. Is that you would accept something that is not scientific to prove God to you?
I can see myself being convinced of it for personal reasons, yeah.
Okay, because earlier you said that you were mocking people to believe things out of the realm of science and evidence. So,
what did I do?
That's what happens when you don't have any concrete ground.
You were mocking people that believe things outside of the realm of science.
When? What did I say?
Just 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, what did I say though?
You're done.
I'm not gonna clip you right now. You said it.
Okay.
Maybe you don't have an example of what I said.
Maybe it's recorded, dude.
My interpretation of what Planet Peterson said was not that. And indeed, if we have hard sensory data, we have no alternative but to assume that our senses are reliable. And so if we have hard sensory data that is consistent with the existence of a creator, we have to accept that. And this is what most, in my experience, Christians or religious people have. They have hard experiential data. They have experienced a God in their lives. They have experienced, they have a personal experience of a creator, and that's very powerful for them. If God were real, he could do that for us. But our standard is that it has to be external to our feelings. It has to be something in the world that we perceive. But he could make us perceive that, even if it was just us and not anybody else.
I'm surprised you guys appear to. I mean, there's many of the people in this room, they would deny that there's a God, or they call themselves agnostic or atheist or both for some reason. But at the same time, they would tell us exactly what they would expect from such a thing when they have no idea even how to categorize it.
Wait, can I clarify something? Because I think maybe most atheists will agree with this. I think it depends on how you're defining God. So some definitions of God, there's just simply no evidence that I would ever believe in. I would think myself delusional before I believed in it. If you define God to be a spaceless, timeless being, there's no scientific evidence that could reason that because it's spaceless and timeless, and that's the realm that science works in. So if you're trying to use spirituality or trying to use science to explain something spiritual, there will never be scientific evidence. But there are ways that you can define God that would be able to be explained by science. So people believe that the universe is God. They're pantheists, and technically I believe in the pantheist God because I believe the universe exists. So it just depends on what God.
No, he was almost done. Oh, whoever muted him, he was almost done. I could tell.
That's the first time I've agreed with that guy. So
I don't know. Yeah, he should. In my junior mod opinion, he should not have been muted.
Literally just knocked out with my sentence. That's crazy. Okay.
Okay, do you want to finish up? No, repeat it.
Nope, it's fine. You guys can keep going because clearly it's whatever you guys don't like it. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Okay, Andy, so you agree with pantheism?
I think Planet Peterson.
No, I thought you were saying that you can't science God essentially, which is obviously true. It's silly to try and mix the two.
Wait, so Andy, let's say 1,000 years ago they didn't have any sort of high-tech equipment we have today, so they couldn't, using their technology, maybe science it out. Do you think with our advancement we could maybe use technology to try to tackle this question?
No, it's metaphysical. Science is we're talking about physics, right? It's testable, repeatable. That's what science is.
So you don't think that the natural technology that we've developed can capture any sort of supernatural?
Natural explanations don't explain spiritual things. They're not meant to.
No, I was talking about capturing with technology. Does anyone? Andy, what did you think? Do you think our modern day technology?
Ian, our guest has a. Please go ahead, Planet Peterson.
Yeah, so like I do agree that you couldn't scientifically prove or disprove that God exists. Now I didn't specify what God, you know, but you could, like in principle, you can test out ideas like people say the Christian God answers prayers. Okay, God, please give me a McChicken. Didn't happen. Now, did I just disprove that God exists? Well, I disproved, or I proved that a God that gives you a McChicken if you ask for one doesn't exist. So, but now there's going to be an.
I didn't hear you pray to him though. I didn't hear. You want to do a sincere prayer right now?
So that proves that a God that does that particular thing doesn't exist. But we've really only we've only ever done.
Maybe you suck at.
You got to dance the chicken a little bit before you.
We've taken infinity -1, and so what does that exactly?
Cause and effect is science, right? Like in regards to it being a science, like can you prove like with a scientific? So cause and effect is science, right? Like a motion is physics, right? So we know that something that is put in motion is put in motion by something that's actually in motion. Right? So you've heard this argument, I'm sure. Right? So this is a scientific argument, right? Or a physics argument that we could use to prove the necessary prime mover to cause motion.
Maybe we could do that. So Torah, you said I didn't mean it. Now you're a real Christian, right?
You heard. You
I didn't hear you address. I didn't hear you in your prayer. I didn't hear you address anyone.
Well, I probably don't have the right special sauce, right? And I'm an atheist. But you're a real Christian, right?
Well, I don't know what you mean by a real Christian, but I would say the intention of what you're saying matters when you're talking about something like prayer in a spiritual aspect. Unless you want to try to science this out real quick.
Okay. So could you ask your God for a McChicken for me, and then I would believe that it exists.
Yeah, it's down at McDonald's. You just got to go buy it.
Okay, so you can't demonstrate that your God exists. See, we can.
Yeah, he made it possible for the McChicken to exist, so you could go and go get one right now. Not only you're done. You just got wrecked, bro.
McChicken delivered in front of me. Holy.
This guy's never heard of Uber
right to his door.
So
who's gonna order it for him? Let's prove God is real. Hold on. Let's order it for him. So now he believes in God. That was his request.
Yeah, hook us up with your address, bro. We got you. No problem.
What do you want?
It's too late. You already asked for it. It's too late.
Oh, now he's closing the door.
Oh, moving the goalposts, huh? That's what we do around here now.
No.
Torah,
you're
right now.
It's okay. It can take a minute. There's no problem there.
How about if we want a filet of fish? What happens then?
Yeah,
then you're doomed.
Anyways, so I think Torah's like pretty obviously trolling or something, but just to demonstrate why this actually is pretty bad for their case, we can ignore the circular reasoning and all that. What about if a universe where God doesn't exists, then it would also be the case that I cannot magically manifest a McChicken. I have to go to the store to buy it. So Torah's view of the world is actually indistinguishable from a world where God doesn't exist. So this doesn't prove anything at all.
Who made the McChicken?
Precisely.
Did God make the McChicken?
No, but I bet you it was a contingent being. And how far back do you want to go?
I thought God only made the big rib out of Eve.
I guess not.
We could all come together and science this thing out and just figure it out. So we have a contingent thing that depends upon another thing that depends upon another thing. When does it end? Does it go on forever?
The contingent chicken.
Well, his world, God like, assembled and provided the contents for you to be able to make and have a McChicken. Dude. So like this whole idea, it's just like the fact that it exists is part of the blessing.
And we're willing to buy it for you right now to believe.
Really just a claim.
Okay, well, your shit's just a claim.
The point that Peterson is making is an extremely important one. If you want to introduce something as evidence supporting a hypothesis, it ideally should be exclusively consistent with that hypothesis. It should not permit other hypotheses to be true. So, for instance, when I make my presentation about the spherical distance formula being uniformly accurate and the flat Earth distance formula not being accurate, I have excluded a possibility, and I've shown that there's only one hypothesis that the observational data is consistent with. That is a case of excluding a possibility. If you're saying that as Peterson was saying, if you say, well, there's a McChicken down at the local store waiting for you to go and buy it, well, that would also be true if God didn't exist. So you haven't.
Okay, who made the chicken sandwich? How did the chicken sandwich get made? Who made the person that made it? You're going to go all the way back.
Question, Torah, you're begging the question.
That's not begging the question.
It is
looking for the non-contingent. No, you're voicing all these things that are contingent upon something else until you have to get to the ultimate source where contingency ends and it's non-contingent. Otherwise, you're in an infinite regress.
Holy shit!
No, that's also a false argument. The idea that there must be some initial point in time or some point before time, which is a contradiction, is nonsense. It doesn't make sense to say that there must have been something to start the universe, because if there was something to start the universe, there was a universe.
Well, it's just a true dichotomy.
I'm still talking, so perhaps maybe listen to what I'm saying rather than talk over me. If there was, you can't say that there must have been a first point in time. Well, you have no evidence for that. That's just an assertion.
We have the time right here, right now. We have this moment right here, right now.
I'm still talking. I'm still talking, mate. I'm still talking. Stephen Hawking demonstrated that the boundaryless time universe was completely consistent with observational data. So there is no need for there to be a first time.
Is there infinite amount of past reactions?
Don't talk over him.
Oh,
we don't know. It could be that time is circular, which is
were they physical? Were all the reactions in the past physical?
Perhaps if you're
going to make him yell.
Interrupted me less, I would be able to answer your question. Time could be circular for all we know, which is to say that it is finite in extent, but it is not. But it has no beginning or end. It just goes round and round in a circle. That's a possibility that we cannot exclude. You are claiming that time must be linear and time must have some initial value. That's
no, I'm
not
talking about the
true.
present moment. I'm talking about the present moment. I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about a whole bunch of that's crazy.
You're talking about going back in time, and it must require an infinite regress.
I'm talking about right now.
I am demonstrating that that claim is false.
We have the present moment. To anybody other than this guy, we have the present moment. Like for Peterson, right? He wanted the science of that. We have the present moment. Now, either you believe that there was a series of events prior to this present moment, Peterson, or you do not. I mean, it's just a true dichotomy.
No, B theory of time can be true. All events are equally real.
Okay, then let me ask,
Also,
is there a
to add
no?
to
I
this-
need to ask. Is there a finite amount of mass in the universe?
We have no idea. The universe looks like it has flat topology, which means it could literally go on forever. The observable universe has a quantifiable, I guess.
To this present moment, Peterson, or you do not. I mean, it's just a true dichotomy.
No, B theory of time can be true. All events are equally real.
Okay, then let me ask,
Also,
is there a
to add
no?
to
I
this-
need to ask. Is there a finite amount of mass in the universe?
We have no idea. The universe looks like it has flat topology, which means it could literally go on forever. The observable universe has a quantifiable, I guess, amount of stuff in it, about 10 to the 80th, which means it could literally go on forever. The observable
dichotomy.
No, B theory of time can be true. All events are equally real.
Okay, then let me ask,
Also,
is there a
to add
no?
to
I
this-
need to ask. Is there a finite amount of mass in the universe?
We have no idea. The universe looks like it has flat topology, which means it could literally go on forever. The observable universe has a quantifiable, I guess, amount of stuff in it, about 10 to the 80th particle.
The idea that there must be some initial point in time or some point before time, which is a contradiction, is nonsense. It doesn't make sense to say that there must have been something to start the universe, because if there was something to start the universe, there was a universe.
Well, it's just a true dichotomy.
I'm still talking, so perhaps maybe listen to what I'm saying rather than talk over me. If there was, you can't say that there must have been a first point in time. Well, you have no evidence for that. That's just an assertion.
We have
right?
the time right here, right now. We have this moment right here, right now.
I'm still talking. Still talking, mate. I'm still talking. Stephen Hawking demonstrated that the boundaryless time universe was completely consistent with observational data. So there is no need for there to be a first time.
Is there infinite amount of past reactions?
Don't talk over him.
Oh, sorry.
We don't know. It could be that time is circular, which is to
were they physical?
Universe was completely consistent with observation that there must have been a first point in time. Well, you have no evidence for that. That's just an assertion.
We have
right?
the time right here, right now. We have this moment right here, right now.
I'm still talking. I'm still talking, mate. I'm still talking. Stephen Hawking demonstrated that the boundaryless time universe was completely consistent with observational data. Demonstrated that the boundaryless.
We have the time right here, right now. We have this moment right here, right now.
I'm still talking. I'm still talking, mate. I'm still talking. Stephen Hawking demonstrated that the boundaryless. Talk over me. If there was, you can't say that there must have been a first point in time. Well, you have no evidence for that. That's just an assertion.
We have
right?
the time right here, right now. We have this moment right here, right now.
I'm still talking. I'm still talking, mate. I'm still talking. Stephen Hawking demonstrated that the boundaryless time. I'm still talking. I'm still talking, mate. I'm still talking. Stephen Hawking demonstrated that the boundaryless time universe was completely consistent with observational.
I think I knew from about the age of 9 or 10 that I wanted to be a scientist. Most of my activities, like playing with model fireworks or model railways or playing complicated games, was aimed in some way at finding out how the world worked around me.
So in a sense, you went from modeling planes to modeling the universe.
I was never very very good with my hands, where my models did not work very well. But I was always interested in models that I could control. And I think that nowadays I have translated that into studying physics. Because in a way, if you understand the universe, then you have control of it. If Einstein's general theory of relativity is correct, the universe began with a singularity called the Big Bang. Now, because it was a singularity, all the laws of physics broke down. And therefore, we cannot predict how the universe began.
Doesn't this sound like a good argument for the belief that God created the universe?
A few years ago, I was at a conference on cosmology that was held in the Vatican. And at the end of the conference, the participants were granted an audience with the Pope. The Pope said it was fine for them to inquire into the early history of the universe, but they should not ask questions about the Big Bang itself. Because that was the work of God. However, at that conference, I proposed that Einstein's general theory of relativity would have to be modified, and that modification would mean that there was no... And all the laws of physics would hold at the Big Bang. And if that is the case, we can completely predict the state of the universe from the laws of physics.
What you're saying.
Okay, I just wanted to apologise if I've come over the top of any of you at all this stream.
No problem, Doctor.
I'm also very much a fan.
Thanks for the apology.
Don't call me Doctor. Just Tony is fine.
Sorry, Doctor.
I'm also very much a fan of your content. You do a great job.
Oh, thanks. If complexity means like anything that can be reducible because it contains within it patterns or something like that, the more something is reducible in that sense, the less complex it is. And DNA very much has that, very much has repeating patterns, whereas a pile of trash is a random mess. So it's actually way more complex. I'm actually going to defer to Tony here because his doctorate's in physics, I believe. In that sense, I'm describing that correctly, aren't I?
I believe so. Actually, my PhD is in geophysics, so it's a very specific, different kind of physics. It's a very different kind of physics, yes.
That's plate tectonics and volcanoes, not particles and gravity.
No, I do gravity. We do gravity. My particular speciality at the moment is using gravimetric measurements to locate resources on Earth's surface. We use the gravity observations. In particular, we use satellite gravimetric observations, and we can track, for instance, surface water or water going into dams or water being pumped out from underneath cities or other areas. But yeah, that's my speciality at the moment. I can go on more, but anyway. But yes, you seem to get it right, I think.
Loose associations with the words we speak. People don't sit around worrying about the definition of words and if they're using them correctly, because if they did, then people would stop saying literally as often as they do. I digress. So I think most people's intuitive sense.
Jesus Christ, right?
I think most people's intuitive sense of what complex means is how many functions or how many different things can something do. Now, in that respect, is DNA more complex than any computer we've ever made, or whatever Bill Gates said? Probably. I think so. Probably. It's kind of weird at what level of analysis you would take that from. Are you talking about? Because if we mean DNA, we can mean life itself from that. And yeah, I would say that what DNA can do, what it does in the biosphere and is capable of, is vastly more complex. The DNA of just a single cell in an organism, is that more complex than the world's most sophisticated computer? That one's a little more, I don't know about that, but I could be persuaded by an argument for it. So yeah, essentially what he's saying is true and false depending on what you mean. I'm inclined to think he probably meant the second thing. And yeah, you can argue that. Thank you.
How do you feel about the Will Duffy versus, I can't remember who he was debating. That was supposed to be the last flat Earth debate.
Thompson.
Yeah, and then you came back and you brought back flat Earth to modern day debate. How do you feel about that?
I kind of wish they weren't doing it. For me, it's a good business decision. It's kind of a no-brainer for me. I hate to play that game. Right. You know, like the way the Discovery Channel just now plays reruns of Ice Road Truckers and how National History Channel is just aliens and Pawn Stars, and that's it. I hate to play that game, but at the end of the day, my mortgage is $3,000 a month, so I kind of have to.
Oh yeah, you got Patreon? Because that's a lot.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's linked in all my videos.
Yeah, I gotcha. I really enjoyed the debate between you and Pitch Lumen. It seemed like Pitch Lumen was a bit more receptive to what you were saying. Patreon, because that's a lot.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's linked in all my videos.
Yeah, I gotcha. I really enjoyed the debate between you and Pitch Lumen. It seemed like Pitch Lumen was a bit more receptive to what you were saying, unlike Nathan Thompson or something.
Yeah, Pitch was cool.
Yeah, I like Pitch. She seems reasonable. Do you have a book on Amazon?
I have two. I wouldn't buy it on Amazon because I only get about a 25% royalty from Amazon. But there's a link to both my books in all my YouTube videos. The best way to buy it is from the publisher. Well, it's not really the publisher because I'm the publisher, but the company that prints the book is called BookBaby. That's the best way to do it for me. You can actually, I have a Shopify store. You can get a signed copy of my most recent book, Facts That Aren't True. I still have a few.
Smart. Yeah, I'm sure lots of more books down or in the future, hopefully. I had a quick question here. No pressure. It's just for, your feedback. Supposedly, in his book, The Road Ahead from Bill Gates, he was quoted in saying, I think it's on page 2.
Cartoonishly stupid straw man of when did it go from nothing to existing? So let's look at this by way of an analogy. I don't think anybody disagrees that humans are conscious or have a conscious experience, but a zygote doesn't. But at one time, that's what we were. We were a fertilized egg. So is it the case that once this once the brain becomes exactly 100 million neurons big, and there's that one cell division that takes it from 999 or 99,999,999 to 100 million, then boom, you're conscious. No. Whether or not you agree with my worldview or that evolution is true or whatever, we can all agree that that doesn't make any sense. That's stupid. But we have a demarcation problem here where you transition from not conscious to conscious, but never at any one particular moment. Now, if we can all agree that that happens with us, then we can use our development as an analog for organisms of the past, because a zygote is analogous to a less complex organism, and evolution posits that at one time on Earth, there were nothing but unicellular organisms. And they wouldn't have been conscious. They wouldn't have had a subjective experience like we understand it. An organism, and evolution posits that at one time on Earth, there were nothing but unicellular organisms. And they were organisms of the past, because a zygote is analogous to a less complex organism, and evolution posits that at one time on Earth, there were nothing but unicellular organisms. And they were organisms of the past, because a zygote is analogous to a less complex organism, and evolution posits that at one time on Earth, there were nothing but unicellular organisms. And they wouldn't have been conscious. They wouldn't have had a subjective experience like we understand, because a zygote is analogous to a less complex organism, and evolution posits that at one time on Earth, there were nothing but unicellular organisms. Because a zygote is analogous to a less complex organism, and because a zygote is, and evolution posits that at one time on Earth there were nothing but unicellular organisms.